Okay, welcome back to Spirit Squared. I'm Andrew Darrington, your host. Tonight we're here in Mineola, Texas. We're back home at the Beckham Hotel. So glad to be here. This is kind of where we started 28 episodes ago. Man, I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation. But before we get started, let's talk about our sponsors. We've got the Vault and the Humidor. Thank you so much, Blake and Virginia Young, for sponsoring us, and thank you for the advancements that you've helped us make with the camera systems and the audio systems and all that good stuff. Thank you, Thomas and Martha Red, for your support as well. And then we've got Scott down in Hoot and Holler, down in Gun Barrel City. They're a package store down there, and they do great work down there with personalized service. And if you need spirits for the weekend, you need to go down there and visit them. We have a new sponsor this week. We have Raymond Plunkett with Goosehead Insurance. He got on board, and we appreciate his sponsorship. I wish he could have been here. It'd have been fun to have him here, but he'll be at the next one for sure. But without further ado, we've got our friend Alan Patton here. This is your second time. You're the only second-time guest we've had, just so you know. So you should feel privileged in some ways.
I do.
Yeah, you're a retired detective sergeant with Grand Prairie Police Department. We're going to be talking about a murder that you solved a number of years ago, right?
Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about who we're going to be investigating and who was the victim.
Well, can I give my verbal resume?
Absolutely.
I do a lot of standing, so y'all have to bear with me, but I'm going to do a lot of sitting also. I am indeed a retired detective sergeant from the Grand Prairie Police Department. My father was a Dallas police officer, and we moved around quite a bit when I was a youngster. We moved to Grand Prairie between my 4th and 5th grade year. I went 5th grade through graduation at South Grand Prairie High School, went in the Marine Corps straight out of high school.
Ooh-yah.
Hoorah. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, on August 1st, 1980, I got hired by the Grand Prairie Police Department as a street cop. I did just over 4 years as a street cop. And in that time, in August of 1982, the day after my 28th birthday, a gunman came into Grand Prairie, went on a shooting spree, killed 6 people, wounded 4 more at 3 different places. He stole an 18-wheeler. He and I ended up on the same street. I set up a roadblock and get out and start shooting at him, and he rams my squad car going 60 miles per hour. And I was nearly killed, and I was hurt very, very bad, but I didn't die because God had plans for me. I went back to work in less than 6 months. And then in November of 1984, I got an opportunity to become a detective working juvenile crimes. Crimes committed by juveniles and crimes committed as victims as juveniles. During that time, apparently I'm making an impression on the leadership within criminal investigations that this guy knows what he's doing. He's making wise decisions. He's objective and impartial. He doesn't let his personal opinion. Well, in the summer of 1985, I became a detective working property crimes, burglary, theft, vandalism, people breaking into your car, stealing your lawnmower out of your shed, breaking into your house. And I did that job for quite a while. Well, then in the fall of 1989, Grand Prairie has a predominantly black neighborhood called Dalworth. And the department was putting together a crack cocaine task force designed to jack with people who were both dealing and people who were buying crack cocaine. And I was asked to volunteer as a detective working property crimes, and I was partnered up with a black officer named Greg Hunter who worked patrol in that neighborhood. And there was another couple, another detective from major crimes and another police officer that worked that neighborhood. So there were 2 of us working in teams. And our job was to hassle the crack cocaine, work the criminal cases, and try to deter people from buying crack cocaine and make arrests. I did that job until June the 10th of 1990. This all began in March of 1990. And so to try to introduce the victim, so to speak, I want to first start by swearing y'all in, because this young man was murdered. And
Eric, Alan, don't walk any further forward.
Okay.
Or we're going to run you out of the camera
sorry.
system. No problem. No problem.
but basically, the man that was killed, his name was Robert Green. His street name, and you're going to hear a lot of street names tonight, because everybody in the Dalworth community had a nickname, pretty much, or a street name. Robert Fat Green, who weighed about 115 pounds.
Yeah.
But the reason why they called him Fat was because he sold the largest rocks of crack cocaine. So he got that nickname because of the size of crack cocaine he sold. So before I get into some things I want to say before we talk about this young man's murder, I want to ask y'all to be part of this investigation. I'm going to swear y'all in and ask you to help me solve this case as I lay this out one piece at a time. This case is the first case that I preface with one thing leads to another. And it was amazing to me in the time I was in major crimes working homicides, how that worked in so many cases. One thing led to another. This was the first of those. Just to get the statistics out of the way, I went into major crimes in June of 1990. I worked nearly 8 years as a detective in the unit. I was assigned to 25 homicides as a lead detective in that time. Guess how many I solved? 25?
Yeah, I would say.
Every single one of them.
Yeah.
And then when I got promoted to sergeant and took over supervising major crimes, I supervised 79 homicides. So I've been involved in 104 homicides in that time. But I'll get into more about that as we go along here. But basically, I want y'all to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Swear to assist Detective Patton in solving the murder of Robert Fat Green. So help me God. Okay. So I want to start with just some basics. And I'm going to sit down here in a little bit, but right now I'm very excited.
I was about to ask you, you can sit down?
Right now it's hard to, I'm so excited about meeting y'all and being here for this.
Sure,
It's the second time, and I retired August 23rd, was 12 years ago, after 32 years. I have long compared conducting a criminal investigation into piecing together a 1,000-piece puzzle. Very seldom were we able to find all 1,000 pieces of a puzzle related to somebody's murder. We would begin our investigation with, say, I used the number 528 pieces of that 1,000-piece puzzle. It was our task to discover as many of the remaining 472 pieces of that 1,000-piece puzzle as we could, then to gather evidence from witnesses, DNA, forensic evidence, recovered this, recovered that, and then to prepare a case to send to the district attorney for prosecution after we made an arrest. There's an oath of homicide investigators, thou shalt not kill, and the motto is we work for God. And no matter how wise I may have thought I was, or how much experience I had, there were many times that God would plant things in my head that people would call them hunches, but I didn't. God's basically telling me what to do here. So I worked for God, just so you'll know. The stories, this one thing leads to another. The stories related to these unrelated mysteries and the ironies combined with we work for God moments relating to solving the murder of this 17-year-old Robert Fat Green. This is one thing I ask a lot of people to remember. Patience is a virtue, persistence is a choice. 32 years ago today, I worked a homicide that we talked about previously.
Yeah, last podcast.
Yes. And woman stabbed 113 times, throat cut, eyes cut. And when I made an arrest to solve that case, and when an officer asked me, how did you solve this? I said, patience is a virtue, persistence is a choice. It came out of my mouth. So now I want to talk about what's called the victimology. I want to explain about Robert Fat Green. Again, he was a known crack cocaine dealer. 17 years old, Greg Hunter and I and this other group of two guys, we developed relationships. You know, I would get out of the car and, yo dog, what's up, my homie, man? How your mama got some Q? You know, and I wanted to talk to the people on the street like they were the people that are my friends. So I learned how to talk to crack
Let's hope
cocaine.
you weren't wearing that flannel.
No.
No, okay. You weren't. Okay. Just want to make clear.
So Officer Greg Hunter and I were working on this street crimes task force, again, chasing crack cocaine dealers and users. And we became familiar with Robert Green. He was selling crack cocaine to help pay his grandparents' bills. Mm-hmm. So this may sound unethical, but sometimes we turned our head the other way because a young man's doing what he's got to do to take care of his grandparents. The crime, we'll start here. Friday, March 31st, 1990. At 6:15 p.m. that day, a lady named Vicki Beard is leaving her father's house in this Dalworth community. That house is on Southwest 17th Street. When she hears yelling, she sees a car which she describes as a silver Ford Mustang stopped in the street in front of the house. She hears 2 gunshots. She looks up and she sees Fat, that's just what I'm going to call him from this point forward, who is standing by the driver's side of that car. She watches as he falls to the ground and that vehicle takes off. Miss Beard walks up to check on Fat and see that he has been shot, and she calls 911. Officers and the ambulance arrive. Fat is taken to the local hospital where he dies during surgery as a result of 2 gunshot wounds to his chest. The hospital finds a baggie containing 10 rocks of crack cocaine in Fat's underwear. At the scene of the crime scene investigator arrives, and on the street is a pair of glasses. And in front of that pair of glasses is a shell casing. That's the crime scene.
The Humidor is your online cigar retailing headquarters. Our experienced staff has spent years finding some of the best cigars from around the world to sell to our customers. If you're looking for an online cigar store that can help you find your next favorite smoke, welcome to the Humidor. We began the Humidor because of our deep appreciation of the finer things in life, a good conversation with friends, an aged whiskey, and, of course, a fine smoke. That's why, in addition to selling premium cigars online, we also operate a brick-and-mortar cigar lounge in Tyler, Texas. Our lounge is crafted to provide a classic ambience with modern sensibilities, and we've spent time ensuring that smokers and non-smokers have an enjoyable experience, whether they're there for a drink with friends or to enjoy the game.
No idea who those glasses belong to, but we're pretty much thinking that that's got to be a shell casing that's part of the shots that were fired.
And we know caliber it is.
It's 25 caliber.
Okay.
The crime scene did recover this one 25 caliber shell casing and the glasses. I'm going to ask you a question. What significance, if any, do these two items have at this point in the criminal investigation? Yes, ma'am.
Well, the shell casing is from the gun that was fired, and the glasses were either his or somebody leaning out and shooting. Were the glasses sunglasses or readers?
They're like this. They're clear.
Just clear glasses.
Okay.
Yeah. So she said that the casing was from the gun that was shot, and the glasses were either from Fat himself or someone that was shooting at him in this silver car that was described as a Mustang.
Right. What are your initial thoughts about what happened and why?
Drug deal gone wrong.
Pardon me?
The drug deal gone wrong.
It's a good one.
So she said drug deal gone wrong.
25 calibers not that common.
Yeah.
Well,
in
it
my
is,
world,
but it's not like somebody would say, I'm gonna kill somebody, so I'm gonna buy 25.
Another thing is, maybe he knew the people because he walked right up to the car.
Yeah.
well, he was in the car. She saw him getting out of the car and saw him fall after the shots were fired.
Okay, so he knew the people.
Right. And this is the picture that was taken at the hospital of him after he had surgery, and he died during surgery.
So was he on the driver's side or the passenger side?
He was coming out of the driver's side from the back seat.
So he's a passenger in the back seat.
He's in the back seat, driver's side.
Right.
So the 25 had to be poked out the window to make the shot from the driver's side.
The thing that happens here, of course, I wasn't in major crimes then. I was just a task force guy. We were there, Greg and I were there, but basically it was, she said as he was getting out, she saw him falling out of the car as she heard these shots. So, when the shots fired, as he's getting out of the car,
Right.
before he got out of the car, as he's getting out of the car, so there's still, just people having ideas about what they think might have happened. But any philosophy or any thought is worth keeping in your heart and your mind until the evidence pushes you in a different direction.
For a shell casing to be out, I would guess it'd be the driver. And he'd have the pistol out of the window.
And that there's a possibility that that again, knowing what happened, but knowing what happened at the moment, is any of those possible things. A shell casing ejects to the right.
Windshield.
It could have hit the windshield and dropped out.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Tarrant County medical examiner performs the autopsy on Pat's body, and they recover two, and I want to use this word that we used in police work, pristine 25 caliber projectiles from his body. What I mean by those who don't know what pristine means is it wasn't a projectile that was all torn and shattered and broken in parts, and would be great for a ballistics comparison if we found the gun.
Soft tissue, didn't hit a bump.
Exactly. Fat's grandfather tells the police officers that responded that 1 week earlier that Fat had been assaulted with sticks by members of a local street gang known as the Hip Hop Gangsters.
Definitely in the 90s.
Yeah. Tom Junkin was a detective in the Major Crimes Unit, and he was the lead detective on this murder. I was still on the task force. And Detective Junkin investigates the possible involvement of anybody from Hip Hop Gangsters and discovers that one of the Hip Hop Gangsters, whose name is Brian Keith Walker, owns a blue Ford Mustang. That matches the description. She said silver, but it's nighttime.
Yeah, sure. 6:15 is pretty late.
Exactly. Well, the detective Junkin obtains a warrant for Brian Keith Walker for the murder based upon what the grandfather had told him.
Ooh, it gets good now.
Then April 19th of 1990. I got to stand up to talk about this.
Oh, man.
I can't sit down.
I knew it. You got to adjust the camera here.
Yes.
Don't step on
No,
these
I'm not.
glasses.
I'm not
here.
moving.
Especially if
Don't
it's-
step on the crime scene.
Yeah, don't step on the evidence here.
Yeah, exactly. Sunday, April 19th, 1990. I worked a part-time job in uniform at a roller skating rink in Grand Prairie for 21 years. Every Sunday night, it was called Soul Night. Most everybody there was an African American or black male, female, and many of them from the Grand Prairie, the Dalworth community. I'm working at Roller World when a guy that I know that's from the Dalworth community, who his mother makes great barbecue, and I've been having dinner at their house a lot, he comes and tells me, Patton, Walker is here, and he's got a gun. So I get on the radio, I call for a signal 6, which is officer needs assistance right now. I go over to the concession stand where he is, and he sees me and he starts reaching for his back. We kind of bump, and a .357 revolver falls out of his hand and onto the floor, and he and I bit into a tussle, and we end up on the skate floor, and we're fighting each other. And I get his left hand handcuffed. We fall on the floor. I'm laying on my back. He's on my chest, his back. I've got his hand cuffed here. I've got my right hand on the other cuff, and I'm kind of pinning him down, waiting for the cops to get there. And all of a sudden, I feel somebody tugging on my pistol. And I look down. There's a guy wearing this funny hat that's got his hand on my pistol, and I'm still trying to control Walker, who is the warrant for murder. He grabs my pistol. I grab a hold of the handle of my .45 caliber semi-automatic, and he's pulling it away from me. And I'm looking at the pistol in his face, and I'm about to take the safety off. I'm about to fire into his face. Here comes the cavalry.
Yeah.
8-10 cops. They grab him. He goes to jail. Walker goes to jail. Okay? But that was me arresting the original suspect that Detective Junkin had obtained a warrant for.
You can sit down. Okay.
That's just something that's hard to tell.
Blood just rushed to your face.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Walker, Detective Junkin asked, the only evidence he has is what grandfather said he'd heard. Okay? Well, Detective Junkin asked Walker to take a polygraph. He refuses to take a polygraph. There's no real evidence, admissible evidence.
Yeah.
So the case goes cold. Don't know what that means, right? It's now what we call a suspended investigation. And this again is in April of 1990.
If you are looking for a reputable builder with a proven track record and a client base to back it up, give Red Construction and Development LLC a call. Red Construction offers full design build services for new construction, custom homes, and remodeling with free site evaluations. They have an A+ rating with the BBB and are proud members of the Tyler Area Builders Association, Texas Association of Builders, National Association of Home Builders, and the Lindale Area Chamber of Commerce. Red Construction and Development LLC stands behind the exceptional quality of their work and have the expertise, the resources, and dedication to deliver the results you need on time and on budget. To learn more, give them a call at 903-630-8660 or visit them online at redconstructiondevelopment.com.
September the 17th of 1990, so quite a few months later, 1701 Independence in Grand Prairie is a residential community on the south side of Grand Prairie. a Fox and Jacobs neighborhood. At 2 a.m., a woman named Sarah Miller and her twin sister, she wakes up to find that her twin sister, Mary Batty, who I went to high school with, that Mary is missing. What does a white girl named Mary Batty have to do with anything? Any ideas?
Maybe she was out looking for drugs.
At 2 a.m.,
Yeah.
you know,
Maybe.
that opens the door to a lot of items.
Yes, sir. Well, Sarah, her sister, calls the police department to report that Mary had tried to kill herself by a drug overdose 2 days earlier, because Mary had learned that her boyfriend was having an affair with one of his co-workers. Sarah reports Mary as a missing person. That day, at 3:15 in the afternoon, Mary goes to a warehouse on West Freeway, almost directly behind the Grand Prairie Police Station. Armed with a small caliber pistol, Mary goes to her boyfriend's place of business, where she sees him with his new girlfriend. Mary has a vase of silk roses with her. She throws that vase of silk roses at her boyfriend and says, "This is for you." Mary then shoots herself in the head, committing suicide.
Small caliber,
Small caliber.
25.
Small caliber. It was Detective
It wasn't pristine if it was in the head.
Detective Ron Siebert and I got hired the same day as Grand Prairie police officers, and we were both in major crimes now. Okay? Ron responded to the suicide. He didn't need anybody else. He just went and responded. But he didn't really advertise to us what the small caliber. He just called it small caliber. He didn't say 25.
But at that time, did you recognize that it was a classmate?
Oh yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
yes. I knew that Mary was my classmate.
That was probably a distraction as well, since it was a classmate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, wait a minute. No, I did not.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, I did not.
I did
I did
not.
not. I did not.
Yeah, at that time you did.
At that time, I did not.
Yeah.
I just knew a woman had committed suicide in the parking lot. That's all I knew.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You'll find out how I knew more later.
Right.
So here we go. 16 months and 4 days later,
After her suicide.
after her suicide,
Okay.
on August the 3rd, 1991, there was an apartment complex in the black community called the Crescent Arms Apartments.
I told y'all there was going to be a lot of details here. So
And the
y'all are
Crescent,
doing a great job, by the way.
Yeah.
They're doing a great job.
and the Crescent Arms Apartments is where a lot of crack cocaine got slung. And a lot of marijuana got smoked. At 12 a.m. on August 3rd, 1991, there was a guy that lived there named Derek Lamont Loudon. Derek was 21 years old. Derek Loudon was involved in a fight at Cottonwood Park in Grand Prairie. Softball fields, baseball fields, basketball goals.
Fights.
A fight.
No, I'm saying fights too. Basketball field.
Yes, yes.
Fights. Yeah. The whole
Well, Derek Lamont Loudon got into a fight with Bernice Snag Grundy. So his street name is
thing.
Snag.
I wouldn't say Bernice either.
No.
Say Snag. It's better.
He was 23. During this fight, Loudon pistol whips Snag. Snag leaves, goes to Dallas to get his brothers, Perry, who's 19, and Ernest, who's 27. They armed themselves with an AK-47 and 2 MAC-11s, semi-machine guns basically. And they returned to Grand Prairie in order to seek retaliation against Derek Lamont Loudon for pistol whipping Snag, and his brothers are ticked off.
Right.
At the apartment complex, Snag hands his 9mm pistol to one of his brothers, and he and Loudon get into another fist fight. This is in front of a lot of people in this apartment complex. Loudon is winning this fight. So Ernest, Snag's brother, jumps into the fight, and now both Snag and Ernest are fighting with Lamont Loudon. Okay? Many witnesses are watching this fight. A friend of Loudon's, known only as Booty, okay,
I know a lot of those.
approaches and fires several rounds from a 9mm up into the air, apparently meant to dissuade Snag and his brother Ernest from further assaulting Derek Loudon. Snag then tells Perry, "Kill this mother effer." Perry, armed with an AK-47, shoots Loudon in the back as Loudon is running away, killing him instantly. So Derek Loudon is dead. There was a young man there in the crowd named John Greer. John Greer was special needs. He was 18 years old. We knew his mother. She was a local prostitute. He is standing in the area where the crowd is gathered. Perry Grundy points the AK-47 at John Greer and asks him, "What do you have to do with this?" Greer says, "Nothing." Perry inexplicably fires 3 shots at this 18-year-old John Greer with the AK-47, striking him in the chest, killing him instantly. Why would he want to kill this 18-year-old boy?
He's a witness.
There were lots of witnesses.
That's a witness. Yes.
Witness to a previous crime.
Pardon?
Witness to a previous crime.
No clue. It was hard to understand the motivation behind this. I'm responding to this shooting, by the way, me and Detective Siebert. Once Perry began firing, both Snag and Ernest, his brothers, and another 4th guy who we never identified, they began firing wildly into the crowd. 5 people are wounded, but they don't die. The Grundy brothers, Ernest Baker and his unidentified other suspect, they run to the Grundy mother's. They had stolen her 1985 Ford truck, and they had parked it in the parking lot. They run to the truck, but they don't get into it. They left on foot after throwing their weapons underneath a car that was parked in the parking lot. Their mother, the Grundy's mother, shows up at the apartment complex at 4 a.m. to get her truck. Officers confront her,
And
she claims that one of her sons had stolen her truck.
And you're not gonna believe what she's got on her person. We're gonna take a break right now.
Vault Arms is your premier destination for all things firearms. Extensive selection of handguns, rifles, shotguns, and accessories. Knowledgeable staff to assist you in finding the perfect firearm to fit your needs. State-of-the-art gun range equipped with the latest technology for a safe and thrilling shooting experience. Take advantage of our professional shooting instruction and training programs suitable for all skill levels. Host your next group outing, corporate event, or bachelor party at our spacious and secure shooting facility. Committed to promoting responsible gun ownership and firearm safety. Fully licensed and compliant with all state and federal regulations.
All right, we are back, and so just to recap, we have a tussle, then we have a firefight, then we've got the mom of the three, Snag and his brothers. They've run off. They left her truck there. She shows up at 4 a.m. trying to retrieve it, knowing that it got stolen, but somehow knows that it's there. And she's greeted by officers, and what happens next?
Officers find a handgun in her purse, and she was arrested for unlawfully carrying a weapon. At the jail, again, Detective Siebert and I are working this case together. We got hired the same day. She tells him the names of her sons and their birthdays. Detective Siebert prepares photo lineups of these three brothers to show to the many witnesses that are at the scene when the shooting occurred. And they identify Brunice Grundy, Perry Grundy, and Ernest Baker as the three brothers that were there with the AK-47s and the MAC-11s. Detective Junkin obtains a warrant for their arrest for capital murder. It's capital murder because more than 2 people were killed at the same time. At 11:30 a.m. that day, Detective Siebert and I meet the Dallas Police Department tactical officers at her residence by the Dallas Zoo. They were from Dallas. Perry and Ernest are home, and we arrest them on the capital murder warrants. Snag subsequently surrendered to the Dallas County Jail. All three are indicted for capital murder and are subsequently tried simultaneously and are found not guilty by a jury of their peers. I testified in this trial. The defense attorneys brought up an 1836 law in Texas that was still on the books that said a person had the right to arm themselves to seek a peaceful resolution to a confrontation. And so that was their defense, that they were in line with this law from 1836 that was in that moment still a law in Texas.
Wow.
I was cussing as I left the courthouse that day.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. To this point, what about the shooting at the Crescent Arms apartment has anything to do with Robert Green's murder?
The mother's pistol. Till this
It's
day,
a caliber pistol.
caliber burst.
Okay.
Or the fact that they got off in this first trial and maybe they had something to do with Robert Green or bats or whatever his name is.
Well, on Tuesday, December the 17th of 1991, while still investigating the Crescent Arms massacre, I received information that Brunice Grundy had ran to a man named Robert Summers Jr., had ran to his house after the shooting on August the 3rd. Summers refuses to voluntarily meet me. I wanted to ask him, do you remember Bruni's coming there and what happened? He just happened to have a bunch of outstanding Grand Prairie traffic warrants. So I called the local police. Will you find Robert Summers and put him in jail for those warrants? And they did. I went down to the jail to interview Summers to see what he could tell me about Bernice Grundy coming to his house the day of the shooting. As I began talking to Robert Summers Jr., he stops me and says, "Did you ever figure out who shot Fat?" Do you think I was expecting to hear that?
No, not any.
No. Summers then tells me that Rodney Hot Rod Williams, again, everybody's got nicknames.
That's a good one. That's a good
Street
one.
names.
Yeah.
Rodney Hot Rod Williams was also Fat's cousin. Okay? Summers tells me that Hot Rod had been telling people that some Mexican had bragged to him in the Grand Prairie jail about killing Fat. Summers is afraid that Hot Rod will retaliate if interviewed by investigators. So I look for an opportunity to interview Hot Rod without identifying Summers as the source. I don't want to burn my snitch.
Right.
And so I can't just go say, "Hot Rod, come talk to me," because Summers said he'll know that I told you. So that was in
December.
December 17th, 1991. You talk about patience. June the 15th, 1992.
Wow.
More than 6 months after my conversation with Mr. Summers. Hot Rod is a passenger in a stolen car that a Grand Prairie police officer stops. The car is confirmed to be stolen. Hot Rod is a passenger in the car. The officer arrests him as a suspect in what's called unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. I'm not trying to say that he stole it, but you can't arrest the passenger of a stolen car. You can ask him questions, but the officer was a new officer and he arrested him for that. The bottom line is he's in the Grand Prairie jail. Where do I work?
Grand Prairie Jail.
Police department, yeah. So on June the 16th of 1992, I went down to the jail and interviewed Hot Rod. Now granted, I'm trying to figure out creatively how to bring this up without burning Mr. Summers. Okay? So this mind is working overtime, trying to figure out how am I going to bring this up. I know that him and Fat were cousins, but how am I going to do this without burning my snitch?
And overall, it's about 2.5 years.
Yes.
Wow.
So I go down to the jail, and I have Hot Rod come into an interview room with me. I close the door. I haven't said a word. And he says to me, "I know who killed my cousin." And so I said, "You do?" "Yeah." I mean, in November of 1991, 1 year and 8 months after Fat was killed, Hot Rod told me he had been arrested for a bunch of traffic warrants. in November of 1991. And while he was in jail, he served as a trustee. You know what a trustee is in a jail?
Yes.
Okay. Sitting out their time, sitting out their tickets. Hot Rod tells me he was having a discussion with 5 other trustees about things they had done for which they had not been caught.
A worthy bunch of trustees.
Yeah. Williams tells me that 4 of those trustees involved in that conversation were Hispanic. One of those trustees, who Hot Rod identifies as Ovidio Torres, told him, me and my 2 cousins killed a dude named Green in Dalworth. Hot Rod tells me he did not know that trustee's name and had waited to find him in Grand Prairie with the intent to kill him. I researched who those trustees were when he was a trustee, and I prepared photo lineups. There were 8 trustees in total there, and they were all Hispanic. So I showed Hot Rod these photo lineups, each one containing 6 pictures, but one of those pictures was a trustee.
Right.
He positively identifies Ovidio Torres as that guy. I then obtained an arrest warrant for Ovidio Torres' arrest for murder. On June the 30th of 1992, I arrest Ovidio Torres. Do I have probable cause to arrest Ovidio Torres? Do y'all think?
Yeah.
He's running his mouth about killing the guy, right?
Yeah. It happens all the time in jail.
Yeah, doesn't it? Torres admits to me that he was in the jail with Williams, Hot Rod, in November 91, and that he did brag about killing Robert Green.
But he didn't really do it.
Torres called it jail talk.
Jail talk.
Torres told me that he was recounting details of a murder he had obtained from Raul Garcia Jr., a name I had never heard. Torres said he and Raul had been drinking, and Raul showed him a newspaper article on Green's murder and said that he and Arturo Tutti Loera and Pedro Pete Cantu,
Tootie's the best one so far.
that those were together with him when Green was killed. According to Torres, this is what he's telling me, Garcia said that Pedro Pete Cantu was the shooter. So this is the guy telling me who the shooter was, a guy whose name I had not heard before. Based upon my conversation with him, I obtained arrest warrants for Raul Garcia, Arturo Tutti Loera, and Pedro Pete Cantu for murder, and I arrest all of them on July the 1st, 1992. When I arrested Garcia, I found a black 1984 Toyota Celica GT covered with a car cover parked in the backyard of his residence. The 1984 Toyota Celica closely resembled a Ford Mustang. Garcia tells me that he had previously bought crack cocaine from Fat. Garcia and Tutti both said on March 31st, 1990, they were riding around drinking beer prior to going to Delaware to buy crack cocaine. This is a picture of the car that I found, the Celica that looked like a
Mustang. While they were riding around, they picked up Pete Cantu. Those three then drove into the Dalworth community searching for fat to buy crack cocaine. They found Fat, who got into the back seat of Garcia's car, where Cantu was sitting. Cantu sitting on the passenger side. Fat is sitting behind the driver's seat. It's a small back seat, basically.
Yeah.
Unknown to Garcia and Loera, Pedro Cantu was armed with a small caliber semi-automatic handgun. While they were driving around, Cantu armed himself with that pistol and began attempting to rob Fat Green of his crack cocaine. Garcia pulled up in front of 600 Southwest 17th. As Green began scrambling to get out of the car, Cantu shot him twice in his side of his chest with that pistol. So as Fat's getting out of the car is when Cantu fired the shots. And one of those shell casings, like it may have hit his chest and fallen onto the pavement. During Green's struggle to get out of Garcia's car, he knocked Garcia's eyeglasses off. So that explains who the glasses belonged to and who the shell casing, where it came from. Garcia then sped away to his residence on Northeast 19th Street in Northeast Grand Prairie. Afterwards, Pedro Cantu threatened to kill Garcia, Tootie, and their families if they told the police what they had witnessed. So they were basically in fear of their families being killed in retaliation if they talked to the cops. That makes sense, doesn't it? In the street sense, especially.
Sure.
Based on this information, on July 1st, 1992, I obtained a warrant for Pedro Pete Cantu's arrest for murder, and I arrest him. This is 2 years, 3 months, and 1 day after Fat was murdered. 2 years, 3 months, and a day. Pedro Pete Cantu exercises his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent and refuses to speak to me. And I have here written down, remember at this moment who we work for. We work for God. I checked Grand Prairie Police Department local records for Pedro Pete Cantu. And I discovered that he had pawned a Raven .25 caliber.
I knew we were going to have a pawn shop in here. I knew it.
Semi-automatic handgun.
We're coming through.
He had pawned this .25 caliber handgun 4 times. You think I'm looking for a .25 caliber handgun?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Because what am I looking for? What do I call it? The murder weapon. Okay. And we have projectile, 2 projectiles, and a shell casing.
I think 4 pawns pretty much shows possession, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that was his.
Yes. He had pawned this gun, again, 4 times in 1990. He pawned it once before Pedro was killed, and 3 times after Pedro was killed.
Pedro was killed?
No, after Fat was killed. I'm sorry. After Fat was killed. I'm sorry.
Fat.
The names kind of run into each other.
That's okay. I'm here to clarify.
Yeah, but he had pawned it.
You're telling a great story. I'm just
Thank
here
you.
to navigate.
Thank you.
All right.
On July 1st, I checked with the pawn shop, which was directly across the street from my favorite Mexican food place in Grand Prairie. Okay? Yeah, it's right there. And as a property crimes detective, I had been in charge of managing the pawn shops, picking up their tickets and checking the serialized items for stolen, so I knew the pawn shop owner.
Yep.
I learned that the first 3 times Cantu pawned that pistol, he subsequently redeemed the pawn. So he got a loan for money, went back, and 3 times he went back and reacquired the pistol. I learned that Cantu sold that same Raven 25 caliber pistol to that pawn shop on June 4th, 1990. 10 days later, that pistol became the property of the pawn shop. I think 30 days is how long you have to pawn. If you pawn it, 30 days?
60 days now.
60, okay.
Yeah, and then
but if you sell it to
now it's 21.
Okay.
But back then probably 10.
Yeah,
Sounds
10
right.
days.
Yep.
So if I sold something to a pawn shop, they had 10 days and it was theirs to sell or do what they wanted
That's
to.
right.
At the pawn shop, I learned the pawn shop had subsequently sold that 25 caliber pistol to Mary Batty, with whom I had attended high school, the one who committed suicide.
Yeah, she died.
On July 1st, 1992, I went to Mary's last known address in Grand Prairie and spoke to her sister, Sarah.
Yeah, because you still need the gun, right?
I still need the gun.
Yeah.
I told Sarah I was looking for Mary, and she asked me why. And I told her I was searching for that 25 caliber pistol Mary had bought from the pawn shop. Sarah told me that at 2 a.m. on September 17, 1990, she woke up and found that Mary was missing. She called the Grand Prairie police and reported Mary had attempted to kill herself by overdose.
Yeah.
Okay? Sarah reported Ms. Mary as a missing person. She ended up, of course, because then Mary asked me, because the names weren't sticking with me at the time, because they were twins and they owned a daycare center in Grand Prairie. Sarah asked me if I remembered what happened. Ron Siebert had responded to the scene.
Yeah.
And I said, no. And she told me about her going to commit suicide at her boyfriend's place. On September the 17th, crime scene collected that pistol and booked it in as evidence at the police station.
When she
Killed herself
Yeah.
in September of 1990.
Nice.
This is July of 1992.
Right.
Okay? You with me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It appeared possible to me that Mary may have committed suicide with the same pistol that Pedro Pete Cantu used to kill Fat. Y'all agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
I asked Sarah if she knew where that pistol was now, because in our world, if somebody committed suicide and we booked the pistol in as evidence and it turned out it was a suicide, then the property room would reach out to the family of the person who committed suicide. Do you want to come collect the pistol?
Property hearing or whatever, and then hey, you're the heir.
Yeah.
And okay.
Exactly. And so she said that Mary's family had declined to claim that weapon, and that the weapon was still in the custody of the Grand Prairie Police Department. This is over 2 years after the murder. According to Grand Prairie Standard Operating Procedure, that weapon was scheduled for destruction on September the 17th, 1991. So I'm thinking,
It's already destroyed.
we had it, it's been melted down, dadgummit, but we had it for a little while. Do you think a detective wants a murder weapon?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This says one thing leads to who do we work for?
God.
Exactly, okay? On the evening of July 1st, 1992, I met with the property room clerk at the Grand Prairie Police Department property room in the police station. The clerk checked the report number, we call it a service number, for Mary's suicide, and discovered that for some reason unknown to her, the chrome Raven 25 caliber pistol Mary used to commit suicide was still in the property room. Somebody had failed to send it to have it destroyed. We work for God.
Hey, podcast listeners, are you in need of some top-notch libations to elevate your next gathering? Look no further than Hoot and Holler Liquor Store in Gun Barrel City, your go-to liquor store for quality drinks. From smooth bourbons to crisp wines and everything in between, Hoot and Holler has one of the largest and most diverse selections in East Texas. Planning a special occasion? Let our experts guide you to the perfect bottle. You'll receive excellent customer service not offered in the big box chains. Visit Hoot and Holler today and let the good times flow.
Whoa! I had that Raven 25 caliber pistol taken to the Tarrant County Crime Lab, requesting a ballistics comparison to the two pristine projectiles removed by the ME on April 1st of 1990 from the body of Robert Fat Green. The crime lab subsequently made a positive ballistics match, indicating that the 25 caliber pistol pawned by Pedro P. Cantu and subsequently used by Mary Batty 5.5 months later to commit suicide was the murder weapon that killed Robert Fat Green. Pedro P. Cantu was subsequently found guilty of murder and sentenced in 1993 to life in prison. And ladies and gentlemen, people patting me on the back and telling me that, Alan, you're a smart detective. Again, patience is a virtue, persistence is a choice. What I did for a living, I had to be objective and impartial. Sure. I couldn't let my personal feelings affect my decision. Do my job, put together a case package, and let the DA's office decide what weight to give to whatever it was I found. But if there was evidence that showed somebody didn't do something, I provided it as well. But in this situation, God used me to bring to justice a man who killed Robert Fat Green. And that was not the end of my career, but it was when one thing leads to another. Came into my heart and my soul for a long, long time. And there were other cases I worked, of course. But thank y'all. You got any questions at all at this point?
When you were working that case, was that the only case that you were able to work, or did you still have to work on other things?
That's a good question. I had caseload.
That's really hard.
Yeah.
Because everything sort of jumbles together at that point.
But once I arrested Ovidio Torres, and he said what he said about who said that what they had done, okay?
You were on it.
Everything else went into an in basket.
Right.
And that's all I did until I went and saw Ida Mae Saldivar. Ida Saldivar was the clerk in the property room.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Alan is still here.
That's amazing. Was there any kind of DNA evidence at all in this?
No, of course, by the, over 2 years later, that would be almost impossible because Mary had used it to shoot herself, and somebody had picked it up and collected it, and so
there was a lot of fingerprints and all kinds of stuff, and back
But
then, it was kind of still a little new in the 90s.
Well, and probably in terms of fingerprints on that small of a weapon, it's like a shell casing, for example. People would ask me a lot of times in my career, we'd find a shell casing, did you get a fingerprint off of it? If I'm loading a weapon and I take my fingers like this and I put it in a magazine, I'm leaving a partial, but it's not much of in the way enough of a fingerprint to be identified.
To get a conviction.
25 to 45.
Yes, exactly.
Very different.
Yes.
Yeah.
The ballistics is going to be quite a bit more than fingerprints, for sure.
Yes.
Very good story.
Pristine.
Yeah.
Absolutely on your side, too.
What an awesome story, man. Really appreciate you coming on. Second time coming on. The first time the last thing we do with all of our podcasts is give a shout outs, right? And you have a special one tonight, right?
Yes. Remember I was telling you that me and Greg Hunter were on the task force together, okay? Greg and I became incredibly close friends. He was my best friend on the police department. We played flag football together. We played basketball together. I was there when his children were born. I love that man. And he was on the task force with me that day. Again, I was in major crimes as a detective from June of 1990 till February of 1998 when I got promoted to sergeant the day Diane Zamora got found guilty of the cadet murder. The police chief said, "You're now the sergeant over major crimes." So from February of 1998 until July of 2008, I was the sergeant over the major crimes unit, and I responded to every homicide. In June of 2004, I had gone to Waco to a mall to go shopping. My parents were living at Lake Whitney. My sister worked for the police department as a secretary in the narcotics unit. She called me on my cell phone and told me that Greg Hunter, who was now a patrol sergeant, had been shot and killed in the parking lot of a Walmart in Grand Prairie. I went straight to that Walmart from where I was, and part of my responsibilities as a sergeant was to make death notification to people who we found people that were killed, either suicide or homicide or suicide, whatever. And this guy that killed Greg was in a van, and officers had shot and killed him, and then they had they shot tear gas and everything. They didn't know if he was shot or dead, and he was dead. And I found a letter in there with the name of some people that lived about 2 blocks away. It was his parents. And I went to their house, and I knocked on their door, and was I sympathetic and kind at all? Instead of, "Sir and ma'am, is this your son?"
Yeah.
"Your son killed my friend."
Yeah.
And about a week later, I went back to their house and I apologized wholeheartedly and asked for their forgiveness. But Greg was with me that day when Pat was killed, and he was killed on line of duty in 2004.
Was he killed just because he was in where? Like in a crime scene?
Well, that day's a good question. That day there was a Walmart at I-20 and Great Southwest Parkway in Grand Prairie, and a security guard for the Walmart. There was a van parked almost as far as you could park, almost to I-20. There was a van parked there, and the guy had curtains closed, and he'd been there for quite a while. And the security guard thought he was suspicious, so Greg and some other officers went there, and Greg's walking around, knocking on the doors, and all of a sudden, gunshots fired, and one went right through his neck and into his heart and killed him instantly. And then officers shot this guy through the windshield and killed him. Turned out he had machine guns and bombs, and he was going to Florida to kill his ex-wife. But the Walmart security called because he was suspicious. We found 5 or 6 handguns in there, machine gun. Again, so just wanted to do a memory there because he was there that day, and I also led the procession to where he was buried.
Yeah.
So there's hard times and bad times in police work as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Great shout out.
Well, thank you all very much for your time and your attention.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be hard to beat this one. I mean, it's a really good one. We got to get you on the schedule again. We don't have you on the schedule for 2025 yet, so we definitely need to get you on. Do you think he deserves another podcast?
Yeah,
for sure. I love Alan, love his passion, and love what he does. I mean, it's just an awesome. It doesn't even feel like you're retired. It's like you're back in, business, and you're solving crimes, and you're back on the street. It's just Awesome having you on. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for giving us a shot to talk about these things and relive them, and awesome live audience tonight. And
Okay. Can I add one thing?
Sure, go ahead.
After 18 years, 1 month, and 15 days in major crimes, not that I counted,
Yeah.
in July of 2008, the police chief transferred me to the worst job in police work,
Oh boy. Yep.
internal
Affairs.
Paperwork.
But that last 4 years, I'm objective and impartial. There were cops that I couldn't stand that got complaints, and I would prove the complaints were false. Ooh, I wanted him to get fired, but nope, evidence, nope, okay. Then there were cops that I loved that got arrested for doing stupid stuff, and the evidence proved they got fired and got charged with crimes. Well, when I got ready to retire, a law firm in Fort Worth that represented the city of Grand Prairie and internal affairs matters, can we hire you as an independent investigative consultant? Will you do internal affairs investigations around the state of Texas? So for 5 years, until I moved here in 2017, I went all around Texas doing internal affairs investigations, police chief in Galveston, police chief in Waxahachie, and making a ton of
Yeah.
There you go.
My wife loved that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you retired in Hideaway. It's done.
It's done.
Now you can tell stories,
Yes.
which is awesome.
Yes.
Really appreciate you coming on.
Yes. Thank y'all very
Yeah, it
much.
was really,
Thank you.
really fun.
Thank you, Andrew.
And this is episode 29, right? So we're over a year old. We've created over 14,000 impressions on Facebook. We've had thousands and thousands of reels looked at, and just very, very thankful for everybody that listens and all the followers, and obviously our sponsors. Josh over there doing all the production. That's the one thing I did not want to do this whole thing. And so our next podcast is going to be a pretty cool one for me. I've got my parents coming up. They're going to be part of the live audience. I've got a subject matter expert coming on talking about secondary education. And so she's taught at every level. So she's done 2-year college. She's done VOTEC. She's done online DeVry type stuff. She's done 4-year college. She's a dean now, and my sister. So it's going to be a fun kind of conversation talking about growing up, talking about what parents should look for in their kids, and where to steer them and push them if they see certain tendencies and stuff like that. So it's going to be really fun having her on and having my folks up and kind of culminating 30 episodes of this Spirit Squared thing that we created over a year ago. So thank you so much. Looking forward to the next episode. We'll see you then.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Thank you.